It is 11:40 p.m. A man is standing alone at a gas station. His bike is still ticking as the engine cools. He is not going anywhere. He is not late for anything. He just needed to ride, and he could not tell you exactly why. Ask him and he will say something about the sound, or the air, or clearing his head. That is true. It is also not the real reason. Underneath the leather and the noise, there are 5 hidden traits running through almost every person who rides. Traits that have nothing to do with the bike itself. And trait number 5 is the reason riders say getting on a bike is the only time all week they feel completely like themselves. Trait 1. Controlled risk tolerance. The first trait is a high tolerance for controlled risk, and this is where almost everyone gets it wrong. People assume riders are reckless. The data says the opposite. Most experienced riders are hyper-aware, constantly scanning, constantly calculating. What they actually have is not recklessness, it is comfort operating close to a real consequence while staying calm. Psychologists sometimes call this a high-risk tolerance threshold, and it shows up off the bike too. These are often the people at work who stay level-headed when a project is falling apart, who make the hard call nobody else wants to make, the ones colleagues quietly go to first when something breaks. The bike did not create that trait. The bike revealed it. Because a motorcycle does not forgive a panicked mind. You either learn to stay calm under real stakes or you stop riding. There is no middle version of this skill, no shortcut, no way to fake it once the pavement is moving underneath you at 50 miles an hour. Trait 2. Craving direct feedback. Which leads to the second trait, and this one surprises people every time. Riders tend to have an unusually strong need for direct feedback from the world around them. Think about how disconnected modern life has become. You send an email and wait. You make a decision at work and the result shows up in a spreadsheet 3 weeks later, filtered through 5 other people. A motorcycle gives you nothing but immediate truth. Lean too far? It tells you instantly. Brake too late? It tells you instantly. There is no delay, no middleman, no ambiguity. For a mind that is starved of that kind of clean feedback loop, a ride is not a hobby, it is oxygen. This is part of why so many riders work in careers that are heavy on ambiguity. Engineers stuck in endless review cycles, salespeople waiting weeks to hear back, managers whose decisions get diluted through layers of committee. The bike does not make them wait, it answers back, in real time, every single ride, instantly, honestly, with no spin attached. And that immediacy is doing quiet psychological work that most riders could not name even if you asked them directly. Trait 3. Forced present moment absorption. Here's where it gets interesting, because the third trait is the one almost nobody expects. Riders, as a group, tend to score high on something psychologists call present moment absorption, which is really just a clinical way of describing what happens when your brain has no choice but to stop thinking about everything else. You cannot ride a motorcycle and also mentally replay an argument from Tuesday. The bike will not allow it. Every ounce of attention gets pulled into now, into this curve, this gap in traffic, this patch of gravel ahead, this exact half-second decision, and nothing beyond it. For people whose minds run loud, this is not entertainment. It's closer to a forced form of stillness dressed up as speed. Therapists who work with anxious clients sometimes describe this same effect in rock climbing, in free diving, in anything where the body's stakes are high enough that the mind has no spare capacity left to spiral. A motorcycle produces that state cheaply, repeatedly, and legally, which may be the real reason so many riders describe a short ride as more restorative than a long vacation. Now, before this starts sounding like every rider is secretly a monk on 2 wheels, it's worth pausing on the honest complication, because not everyone who rides is chasing peace. Some are chasing an identity. Some are running from something they haven't looked at directly. Some ride recklessly, ignore the calm, and treat the machine as pure escape rather than pure focus. The traits underneath riding culture are real, but they are not a guarantee of wisdom. A tool that can quiet a busy mind can also become a way to keep avoiding the thing that's making it loud in the first place. That distinction matters, and it's usually the difference between someone who rides for decades and someone who rides hard for 2 years and then vanishes from it entirely. The riders who stay in it long term are almost always the ones who eventually turned the bike from an escape into a practice, something closer to discipline than adrenaline. Trait 4. Mechanical self-efficacy. The fourth trait is quieter, and it has to do with ownership, not in the financial sense, but in the mechanical one. People who love motorcycles are disproportionately likely to also love understanding how things work. Ask a longtime rider about their chain tension or their carburetor and watch their face change. This is not a small detail. It connects back to something psychologists call self-efficacy, the felt sense that your actions produce a real, visible outcome in the world. A motorcycle is small enough and exposed enough that one person can genuinely understand the whole machine, top to bottom, in a way that is almost impossible with a modern car buried under sealed computer systems and locked software. That completeness matters more than people admit. In a world of black boxes, a motorcycle is one of the last honest machines, fully knowable by a single human mind, start to finish, bolt by bolt, without an app, a login, or a technician standing between the rider and the truth of what is wrong. Trait 5. Resistance to environmental control. Which brings us to the fifth trait, the one that ties the other 4 together. Riders tend to have a deep, sometimes unspoken discomfort with being fully controlled by their environment, not authority in general, environment specifically. The commute that dictates your morning, the 4 walls that dictate your day, the schedule that dictates your week. A motorcycle is one of the only common experiences left where a person is almost entirely exposed to the world exactly as it is, with nothing mediating it. No windshield wipers softening the rain, no climate control softening the cold, no stereo softening the silence. That exposure is uncomfortable for most people, which is exactly why it means something to the people who choose it anyway. It is not about running from control, it is about proving, on a regular basis, that they can still choose discomfort on purpose, in a life that otherwise chooses almost everything for them. That single act, repeated weekly, is doing more for a person's sense of agency than almost anything else in their routine, precisely because it is voluntary, slightly uncomfortable, and completely theirs, chosen freely in a life where very little else is. None of this happened by accident either. Motorcycle culture in its modern form took shape after the Second World War, carried home by veterans who had just spent years inside extreme high-stakes machinery and then were handed a desk, a commute, and a version of normal life that felt almost absurdly small by comparison. The bike became a bridge back to something they had lost the language for, a legal, repeatable way to feel that same alertness without the war attached to it. That original need never really left the culture, it just got inherited, generation after generation, by people who never fought in anything, but who still recognized the same hunger the first time they twisted a throttle, felt the engine answer back, and understood, without anyone explaining it, exactly what they had been missing. That hunger has not gone anywhere in the decades since, and if anything, it has grown sharper. Work has become more abstract. Screens have absorbed more hours. The feedback loop between effort and result has stretched longer and longer for almost everyone. Riders did not choose motorcycles because the culture told them to. Most of them chose the culture because the machine already matched something that was sitting there unspoken, a resistance to numbness, a low tolerance for a life that runs entirely on autopilot. So the man at the gas station at 11:40 at night is not really out there for the sound, even though that is what he would tell you. He's not chasing danger, and he's not running from his life. He is doing one of the few things left that gives him instant, honest feedback, forces his mind into the present, and reminds him for 20 quiet minutes that he is still capable of choosing something uncomfortable simply because it makes him feel entirely unmistakably alive. The question worth sitting with is not why people ride motorcycles. The question is what you have stopped choosing on purpose, and when exactly you let your own life start choosing it for you instead.